Really now? I thought, looking at Satoru. I was out of the basket, not sure why, but Satoru had left the door open, telling me to come out whenever I felt comfortable. But the thought of that tabby kitten with the stupid name, Shatran, invading my space was unbearable, truth be told. Hey tabby, you know your owner was abandoned by his parents too? But the tabby was so engrossed in playing with his toy mouse he didn't hear me. When are you going to realize how pointless it is to play with a fake mouse, eh? Having a decent conversation with an itty bitty kitten this young was out of the question. He was of the age when he did leap around a bit, then suddenly flop down asleep in the middle of whatever he was doing, as if his batteries had run down. Even when he was in the middle of saying something, if a breeze made the curtain flutter, he would drop everything and leap at it. Was I that silly when I was his age? I think I had a bit more sense than that. Well, cats mature emotionally at different rates. I felt sorry for the poor cat compared to a rare wise cat such as myself. Stitching together his fragmented story, I gathered that this orange tabby was the runt of the litter, and when his mother had moved home, he hadn't been able to keep up and got left behind. A fact of life in the feline world. Kittens that are awkward to bring up or slow are easily abandoned. No matter how hard she tries, a mother cat has only so much milk, and she won't waste any on a lethargic kitten. One of my siblings was like that, overshadowed by the rest of us. It was the kind of kitten you were never sure was there or not, and one day we suddenly noticed it was gone, as if it had never existed. This orange tabby was on the small side for his age, to be honest, not the type you'd expect to make it in life. Yosemite had done a great job bringing him up, and despite him being the ill-mannered kind who'd grabbed you by the scruff of the neck the first time he met you, Yosemite hadn't just looked the other way when a troublesome kitten turned up, so it was clear to me he was an individual who had a lot of love to give. Even people who are big and strong are sometimes thrown in the gutter. If he'd been a cat, Yosemite would have been the top priority in the litter. Okay, be that as it may, you probably shouldn't have made it, little kitty, yet you've been given a new lease of life, so shouldn't you show some gratitude to Yosemite for that? Yes, you. I'm talking to you. The orange tabby looked as though he was listening for a moment, but then, clearly not getting what I was saying, he started to play around with my tail. Guess I'll have to simplify this a bit. Tell me, do you like Yosemite? I seem to have got through. As he chewed on my tail, he nodded. Hey, that hurt. I flipped my tail up. If you like Yosemite, don't you want to make him happy? The orange tabby grabbed my tail again and recommenced chomping with his mini jaws. I told you, that hurts. I flipped it up again. Do you know Yosemite wants cats to catch mice for him, don't you? So, if you can become a real cat who can catch mice, I'm sure Yosemite will be very pleased. The orange tabby stopped his chomping for a moment. I seem to have struck a chord. But the way you're behaving, forget it. You're useless. You couldn't even catch a lizard, let alone a mouse. Okay, what if I teach you the basics of hunting? And not just hunting, but train you to hold your own in a fight with other cats. Yosemite will be worried if you lose every scrap. Putting everything in simple terms like this, I think I got through to the kitten. He sat up straight and asked me to teach him. Good. In the cat world, good manners are a must. I was about to lead the orange tabby into an intro to hunting when Satoru said, Oh, look, Yosemite, they've started playing together. Aren't they fighting? No, Nana's going easy on him. This isn't a game, folks. I'm teaching. Whatever. If they carry on together like this, maybe I can convince you to keep Nana for me. Well, I'm doing my thing here, so you chaps keep doing whatever you're doing. Don't mind us. Satoru watches the orange tabby punch it on the toy mouse the way I taught him to, and his eyes narrowed into a smile. He's so excitable, just like the cat I used to have years ago. You're right about that. When he's supposed to crouch quietly and blend in, he madly whips his tail around instead. I stretch my tail out smoothly, but this little kitten whips his around like a helicopter, and when he crouches down ready to pounce, he keeps his body way too high off the ground. What was Nana like when he was little? I found him when he was a grown cat, so I don't know what sort of kitten he was. I wish I could have known him then. I'm sure he was adorable. You're right there. My level of cuteness when I was a kitten was such that passers-by bought for the privilege of leaving me a little something to eat. Now that you mention it, Yosemite said, after suddenly remembering something. Did you see that cat you adopted ever again? Unfortunately, no. It died when I was in high school. I see, Yosemite said, his voice respectfully mournful. I wish you could have seen him. Sorry about that, but I really didn't want the war to get back to my aunt. Whoa there, Satoru. What on earth are you hinting at here? I ordered the orange tabby to run through the exercises I taught him on his own, and turned my attention to Satoru and Yosemine's conversation. Yosemine's parents' divorce went through without a hitch, his father getting custody of their son. This was because Yosemite wanted to live with his grandmother. It also meant he could avoid the inconvenience of changing his last name. As if they had been set free, both his parents went off on overseas postings and appeared to be doing well, and, as ever, Yosemite found that living with his grandmother suited him down to the ground. A year passed, and, during the first semester of their last year in junior high, the class went on a school trip to Fukuoka. Yosemite realized that something was bothering Satoru only after he'd found out what had happened on a previous school trip, that Satoru's parents had died in an accident. Satoru had looked glum from the moment they departed. On their first day in Fukuoka, when they had some free time, he was uncharacteristically quiet, even though he was with his usual group of friends. Yosemite was concerned that the trip had tapped into depressing memories, but with all the other students around, it was hard to find an opportunity to talk to him about it. After dinner, when they were browsing through the souvenir shop in the hotel, he finally found his chance. Are you okay? Satoru looked worried. He glanced up at Yosemite and said in a low voice, I was wondering if I can get to Kokura. From Hakakata Station in Fukuoka to Kokura was about 20 minutes by the Shinkansen train. So, of course, it was possible, but only if they weren't on a school trip, which they were. Always alert to the dangers of the students wandering off, the teachers running the trip had set up a tight surveillance system. The daily activities were scheduled to the minute. After checking into the hotel, it was strictly forbidden for students to go out on their own. A teacher was always stationed at the hotel entrance. If a student were to try to slip out to have fun at night, there was a very real risk that they might be sent home. So for Satoru to go to Kokura on his own was, in the circumstances, not an option. Yet, the obedient, sharp-righted Satoru wouldn't have said such a thing unless he had a very good reason. How come? Yosemite asked. So Satoru told him. It had to do with the cat he'd had back when his parents were still alive. When they died and his son took him in, he'd have to give up the cat, and relatives in Kokura had adopted it. My aunt's always so busy, I can't ask her to take me to Kokura just to see the cat. So I was wondering if, when we have a free moment during the day, I could slip away and go there to visit it. Do you really want to see the cat that much? His family, Satoru replied. I see, Yosemite said, folding his arms. He'd never had a pet himself, and had no particular fondness for cats, but for Satoru, that cat was something he and his parents had loved, the one remaining family member from that happy time they shared before his parents died. It all made perfect sense. Okay then, so it's just a cat, but it is, after all, a cat. For his friend, the one and only cat in the world. Let's do it. But then Satoru hesitated. Yeah, but he trembled. We have 3 hours till lights out. You know your relative's address, don't you? It turned out to be in an apartment building not far from Kokura Station. If we escape having a bath, we'll have plenty of time, but you won't have a cent left to buy anything afterwards. A round trip to Kokura would cost several thousand yen. We can't tell anyone in our group. If they knew, then they could get into trouble too. When it's time to go for a bath, we'll tell them we'll be down in a minute, and then we'll make our getaway. I'll go on my own. I don't want anyone else to get mixed up in this. Come on, mate. I'm your best friend. And with that, Yosemite slapped him on the back. They hadn't been allowed to bring any clothes other than their school uniform and pajamas, so the choice was between those. They'd both brought jerseys to wear in bed, so they opted for those, since they wouldn't stand out as much as school shirts and blazers. When it came to their turn to go down to the bath, they pretended to need more time to get ready for it. They waited 3 minutes, then left the room. They avoided the main entrance because of the teacher's standing guard and headed straight to the emergency exit they had scouted out earlier. The doorknob on the fire exit had a plastic safety cover, which made it obvious if anyone used the door. If a teacher found the cover missing, there would be an immediate roll call. "What should we do?" Satoru asked anxiously. "The teachers will check this when they make the rounds." "We go up," Yoshimine said, yanking him over to the lifts. "If we rip that cover off a door on another floor, they won't notice." In order to isolate the noisy students from the other guests, all the rooms were adjacent. If they ripped the cover off the knob on a floor where only regular guests were staying, it was possible it would go undetected. The hotel rooms started on the 5th floor, and they'd heard that students on school trips were always housed on the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. When they got out at the 8th floor, the hallway was so quiet they couldn't believe how peaceful the hotel could be. "Okay, let's go." They yanked off the safety cover, pulled open the heavy fire door, and hurtled down the stairs. Exiting on the ground floor, they reached a service entrance, through which they hid it, trying to look nonchalant. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind them. "You there!" Startled, they turned around and saw a hotel employee. "Aren't you students on a school trip?" Oh god, Yoshimine thought. The hotel employees must have been warned to keep an eye out for escapees. "No, actually we're not," Yoshimine shot back, starting for the door. "Hold it right there," the man shouted, heading after him. "Run for it!" Yoshimine darted off, Satoru chasing after him. "Somebody, stop those boys!" The employee's shouts immediately led to more obstacles being put in their way, but running this way and that, trying to avoid all the people who were joining the pursuit, they finally came to the hotel's main entrance. Standing guard was the form teacher Yoshimine had met on his first day, the pretty woman who'd been so sympathetic. "Yoshimine-kun, Satoru-kun, what are you doing?" Satoru thought Yoshimine might give up at this point, but when Yoshimine shouted, "Let's go for it, so there's consequences," he sped up with his friends. The teacher raised her arms to stop them, but they slipped past her and leapt onto the crowded pavement outside the hotel, laughing all the way. They might as well have used the main entrance to start with. They kept on running, to shake off any pursuers, and Satoru shouted breathlessly at his friends. "Listen! Tell people I went out because I was dying to go out at night and have some fun." "Okay." As they made their way down unfamiliar streets, they asked for directions, and in about 20 minutes they had arrived at Hakata Station. They were at the window for train tickets to Kokura when they heard someone calling from behind them. "Hey, you boys!" It was a PE teacher, one of the chaperones. They were escorted back to the hotel, called into one of the rooms where the teachers were staying, and firmly scolded. "Where on earth did you think you were going?" They hadn't agreed on a story beforehand, and weren't sure how to get through this. They glanced at each other, wondering who should go first. "Satoru-kun," this from the kindly teacher, "maybe being on a school trip was hard on you?" "Oh, the beautiful teacher, Miss Empathy. Well, just stop it," Yoshimine thought. "Drop the sympathy. Don't try to protect Satoru by bringing that up." "No, that's not it," Satoru replied in an even voice, though his face had turned pale. "I just wanted to get out and have fun in the town. That's all." "Don't lie to me. I know you're not that kind of boy." Yoshimine nearly burst out laughing. "What do you know about Satoru, teacher?" "Tell people I went out because I was dying to go out at night and have some fun." Satoru didn't want anyone to know he was trying to get to Kokura to see a cat. "Satoru, I'm sorry. I've had enough." Yoshimine looked as though he was about to give up. The teacher's attention turned to him. "It's my fault, Mom. I was dying to eat some Nagehama ramen, and I was asking for directions at the station. The thing is," he went on, "I had ramen at an outdoor stall once in Tenjin with my parents back before they got divorced. Since we weren't far from there, I remember my parents and memories of those good times. Satoru just tagged along with me. Their circumstances were different, But both boys were no longer with their parents. That was justification enough. Two lonely boys wanting to cheer each other up. Yoshimine, Satoru was about to say something, but Yoshimine cut him off. It's okay, he said. He needed his friend to keep quiet if he really didn't want the world to know about his precious cat. The teachers remained silent and stern, but they were clearly uncertain how to proceed. I understand how you feel, but rules are rules. You can't just go off on your own during a school trip, said the PE teacher surly. They should have just bowed their heads and apologized then and there. Both of their guardians were contacted, and as an example to the rest of the students, their punishment was to sit in the hallway, in uncomfortable formal seize style, legs tucked under them, until late in the evening. As soon as he got home from the trip, Yoshimine asked his grandmother a favor. Grandma, please, there's something I really need to ask you. He wanted his grandmother to call Satoru Sound to apologize for getting Satoru mixed up in all this. His grandmother knew her grandson had never been to Tenyin with his parents, but she did as requested, no questions asked. I'm so sorry that Satoru-chan got yelled at because of what Daigo did. Satoru-san seemed embarrassed. I'm the one who should apologize, she said. Yoshimine-kun wanted to abandon the idea, but apparently Satoru dragged him along. So that was how Satoru had explained things at home. I know you two wouldn't break the rules without a very good reason, Yoshimine's grandmother said later to him. He felt choked. This kind and considerate grandmother died some 10 years ago. At a ripe old age, Satoru had moved away when he graduated from junior high, but Yoshimine had continued to write to him. And when he told him of his grandmother's passing, Satoru had come a long way to attend the funeral. When he was thanked for attending, Satoru smiled. She was my grandmother too, wasn't she? He said. Yoshimine nodded, his eyes filling with tears. His father, who was in charge of the funeral, had no intention of taking over the farm and placed the house and its land in the care of nearby relatives who had already got used to farming the fields and rice paddies when Yoshimine's grandmother was no longer able to. Yoshimine had proposed that he take over the farm, but was persuaded otherwise. Apparently, the farm wouldn't make him much money and it would cost him a lot of trouble when it came to finding a wife. Well, as my relatives predicted, no marriage prospects so far, Yoshimine told Satoru now. Well, if I were a woman, I would definitely be interested, Satoru said. If you know any woman who share your values, be sure to introduce me to them. Smiling, Yoshimine poured more shoshu into his glass. Now that they had checked the fields for the evening, it was time for a couple of drinks with dinner. Satoru had some beer with his, but later drank only barley tea. He had never been much of a drinker, and had recently become even less able to hold his liquor. I was hoping that before I leave tomorrow, I might pay a visit to your grandmother's grave, he said. The grave was in the hills behind the house. In Yoshimine's small truck, it would take less than 5 minutes to get there. To celebrate his friend's visit, Yoshimine had planned to stay up late with him, but with an early to bed, early to rise habit drilled into him, he didn't even make it to midnight. Satoru and Yoshimine went out first thing in the morning in Yoshimine's truck, talking as they drove about the night before. Perfect, I thought. I have my own little something to take care of while they're gone. Hey, Orange Tabby. Yes, you. You remember what I taught you yesterday, don't you? We're going to go over how to handle yourself in a fight. I crinkled up my nose and flattened my ears back. Okay, when you see an angry cat like this, what do? The Orange Tabby followed suit, crinkling up his nose, laying his ears back, arcing his back and making the fur on his back and tail stand on end. Excellent. Well done. Now, the final test. When I make an angry face, instantly strike the fighting pose. Impress Yoshimine. Listen, we need to have this nailed before I leave, so keep on your toes. The Orange Tabby was full of spirit. Just then, Satoru and Yoshimine came back, timing it perfectly. So they were just coming into the room. I signaled to the Orange Tabby to adopt a fighting stance. The kitten puffed out the fur all over his body like an exploding ball of wool. He was determined to show Yoshimine his best stance. What the? Satoru sounded totally confused. They were getting on so well yesterday. I wonder what's happened all of a sudden. Who knows? Kittens are pretty impulsive. Perhaps he changed his mind. Maybe he's already forgotten about yesterday. Yoshimine looked puzzled too. Well, let's see how it goes for a while. He might just be in a bad mood. Satoru was planning to leave in the morning, but held off until the afternoon. He tried out a few things, including putting the kitten and me in separate rooms for a while. Unfortunately, the kitten continued performing until we left. Every time I urged him on, he took up his best fighting pose. He was really into it, for a kitten. If he kept this up, he might actually make something of himself. Why don't you leave Nana here and see how it goes? Give him a few days and they might get used to each other, suggested Yosemite when he got back from his morning farm chores. I don't think so, Satoru said doubtfully. Nana got furious and hid in his basket, so it doesn't look promising. It's too bad, but if they don't get on, forcing them to be together is sort of cruel. Really? That's too bad. He's such a good cat. Yosemite, I don't dislike you, so don't think badly of me, okay? But I'm still not ready to leave that silver van for good. Satoru still seemed a bit sad about the whole thing, but with a little orange tabby looking so angry, wearing that ominous look, he finally gave up on the idea. Holding my basket to his chest, he climbed into the silver van. It really is a shame. You say that, but you look pretty happy about the whole thing. To Yosimine's teasing, Satoru gave only a in reply. His remarks seemed to have hit the nail on the head. Well, he went on, it's true I'm going to find it hard to part with Nana. If you like him so much, why do you have to give him away? Oh, you threw that pitch right down the middle, didn't you, Yosemite? A straight pitch, just like when you stuck your hand inside my basket when we first met. Satoru looked perplexed and didn't reply. Never mind, Yosemite said, not pressing the point. If you ever have any trouble, come round, okay? I may not have any marriage prospects or savings, but one thing is certain. Farmers never lack for food. But you see how Satran and Nana are. They're not going to kill each other, and if it comes to that, we can just force them to live together, even if they don't want to. They're just animals. You really don't need to worry so much about whether they get on. That's absurd. When animals are under too much stress, their fur can fall out. If it really doesn't work out, then I'll set it up so you can stay in one of the unoccupied houses in the village. People are afraid their houses will deteriorate, so they want someone to live in them. The village is doing its best to attract young people to come here from the city, too. Thank you, Satoru smiled, but his voice was still a bit shaky. If I really can't find a solution, then I'll definitely take you up on that. Good. I look forward to it. Satoru Yoshimine shook hands firmly. Thank you for everything. I'm pleased I was able to pay a visit to your grandmother's grave. He got into the van, but just before he started the engine, Satoru said, Oh, that's right, and rolled down the window. Yoshimine, do you remember the name of that cat I used to have? Yoshimine shook his head. He was called Hachi. He looked just like Nana, right onto the marks on his face like the Chinese character for 8, and Nana got his name because his tail looks like the character of 7. Yosemite burst out laughing. You said Saturn's name was kind of corny, but the names you come up with are cheesy too. One names them according to the way they look, and the other is into cliches. I'd say it's a tie. Satoru beeped his horn lightly and drove off down the lane. You shouldn't act up like that, Nana. Getting all upset over a little kitten. Ahem. You said you were going to leave me there, but do you really think that's gonna fly? I'm a little relieved, though, that we can go home together. This I already knew. Like I promised, do you want to stop by the sea on the way back? Sounds great. I wonder how many of the delicacies in my usual gourmet seafood plan to roll in there. So the silver van headed towards the beach. Too much bother to stay in the basket, so I balanced on Satoru's lap as we bumped down the rough lane towards the sea. When we got out of the van, Satoru scooped me up and hoofed it down the slope that led to the shore, but me, I clung on for dear life. Hey Nana, what are you doing with your claws? It hurts. No way, no way. What is that rushing sound? I've never heard anything like it. What is it? That monstrous roar. And there it was, the sea, spread out before my very eyes, an endless expanse of water rolling relentlessly toward us. Look, Nana, the sea. Aren't the waves fabulous? Fabulous? What are you talking about? How optimistic humans can be. To think that this enormous mass of rolling water, this soaring energy, is fabulous. I don't know about humans, but if any cat got caught up in it, that would be the end of it for sure. Let's go down by the water sets. No way. Nana, ouch, that hurts. I slipped out of Satoru's arms, struggled to grasp higher ground, and leapt right up on top of his head, where, I have to admit, there wasn't much hair. Your claws, Nana. Don't scratch me with your claws. This is no good. I need a safer place than Satoru's head. Humph. I pushed off and landed on all fours on the ground. Then, scattering as fast as I could, I dashed in the opposite direction from the shoreline. Nana! I ran straight up onto the nearby bluff and settled down at the base of a pine tree growing at an angle from the bare rock. Why do you have to go all the way up there? Come down here! Not gonna happen. If I'm not careful, I'll get swept away by a wave and die. Come on down from there, Nana. It's too hard for me to climb up. In the end, Satoru, with great care and awkwardness, clambered up the bluff to rescue me. From my first experience of the sea, I learned a valuable lesson. The sea is where you go to reminisce when you are far away from home. Delicacies of the sea are not something cats should catch by themselves. It's quite acceptable to allow humans to prepare them for us. My scalp is full of scratches. It's going to sting when I shampoo, that's for sure. Satoru muttered a couple more complaints, but then gave a little chuckle. But, I never imagined you'd be that afraid of the sea. I've seen a side of you I never witnessed before, but it's good to know you don't like it. I do like it, viewed from a distance, the sea, that is. The van drove smoothly along the shoreline. I gazed at the glittering dark blue water, my tail happily raised to the sky. Until then, my life had been limited to the modest territory of Satoru's apartment and a small area around it. A decent-sized territory for a cat, really, but pretty modest compared to the vastness of this world. A cat could never see all the sights the world has to offer in one lifetime. There's just so much out there. Satoru? Since we had embarked on our journey, I'd seen the town where you spent your childhood, in a farming village, in the sea. I wonder what new scenes we would see together before this journey was over.